Hello, my crafty friends. Um, I I have floor in my craft room now, so I could actually move my loom over here where I could video. And so I thought I would play around with it just a little bit and see if it'll work. I want to start by giving you a little bit of terminology for weaving before I actually do some weaving. And I'll give you some. This is where I wrote down my treadling patterns that I might be going to use. And so um, I'll talk some more about that in a minute. But this is my weft yarn. I've got um, three different shuttles. These are called stick shuttles. I've got three different shuttles with different colors. A burgundy, that's what's in the warp. This is the warp yarn, and a brown, and this is a natural hemp. And I haven't ever done hemp with a cotton warp. They're both cellulose fibers, so I think they would work fine together, except they might shrink differently, so I might end up with a bumpy fabric, but that'll be fun. I'm not worried about that. We'll see, though, because I'm going to mix them in this particular fabric, this little piece here, because this is just a sample type piece. Let me move these out of the way so I can tell you some other things. This is just some wool I stuck in here to spread my warp so that it wouldn't have this V in my actual fabric. So I spread it out, and then I started weaving with that hemp. And like I said, these are the warp yarns. And then the ones on the shuttles are the weft yarns. And this is the reed. It's also called the beater because you do this. And if you have a rigid heddle loom, this, let's see if I can show you what it looks like. Not real easy to get the camera to show this. And it doesn't like it. This is the reed. It has holes, and the warp yarns go in each of these slots. They're really slots. They're not holes, because they go the whole length of the whole length here of the reed, and it comes up, and that's what beats your cloth into submission. Actually, you more hug it than beat it. Sometimes you beat it. It depends on how tight you want it. These are the heddles. These are what the yarn is strung through so that you can have a pattern. So you string some of them on 1, on 2, on 3, and on 4. And I only have 4 shafts. These are the shafts right here. So I only have 4, so that's all I can do is those 4 things. But I can do any number of different patterns. Let's get out of that so it won't go crazy. I can do any number of different patterns in my warp by using, depending on where I put those strings, if I put it in 1, 2, 3, or 4 place. So we've got heddles and a reed, which is also called a beater, and warp and weft. And I don't know if you can see it, but down here, can you see under, if you look through the strings, you see my foot down here? Those are the treadles. And that is where I raise the different shafts. Mine is a jack loom. So each time I press on one of those treadles, it raises one shaft. And mine's a direct tie-up jack loom. So I can't change my which pedal raises which shaft. They just are always tied up this way, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So all of my changing has to be done in the heddles, and then in the warp and weft, and how I move those pedals. Hold on one moment, please. Okay, sorry about that. This was done here with the hemp, and I'm going to go ahead and use the red next, because I want to show you with the red and the brown what the same pattern will look like with 2 different yarns. Because the red, you won't be able to see as much pattern in the red areas because it'll be red on red. But on the brown, you'll be able to see what the pattern is in all 3 colors. And so we're going to start with the red just so you can see what that looks like. and then we will go to the brown. Now you can see here is where the end of my hemp is. So I'm going to start weaving on this same side. And right, this was just as close to plain weave as you can get with the way I've got my warp set. Let me show you that. I don't know if you can see, but these right up here, this is where I threaded 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4, and then here's a different pattern, and then 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4, and then here's a different pattern. And then I did this. See, this is just this much. So I did this twice, and then I added a little more over here in order to get the full pattern. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and put this through all the way, but I'm going to pull this thread up here so it overlaps. Oh, I wasn't thinking about trying to pull my my shuttle out over here where I've got a bunch of stuff in the way. Oh well, we'll see what we can do. And then we just use the beater and put it in place, and then we do, and I'm going to just do a little bit of this same kind of plain weave type thing to show you that, so you can see where I make the switch to a different pattern. When you weave, one of the things you need to do is to try to keep your selvages where they're smooth, and that's one of the harder things to do. And if you're left-handed, you tend to have this side smoother than this side, and if you're right, or vice versa, you tend to have one side smoother than the other one. If you can make this a real tight little V over here, you can see how my yarn goes up into a V. If it's tight right here, well, let's say snug, not tight. If it's snug here and then it makes a V up here, that allows all of this yarn to go up and down over the various pieces and to stay flat. And these are my homemade temples. They're bulldog clips with a bunch of stuff hanging off of them. So you do what you got to do, you know. A temple costs over $100. I'm not going to do that. So I had these in the garage. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit more. One thing that sometimes if you put that in there at an angle, you end up picking up the bottom threads. Or if your angle is the other direction, then you end up grabbing the top ones, and you don't want to do that. You want to just go in the shed right between the raised threads and the threads that are staying level. So I don't know if I can show you. No, I don't think there's any way to show you that. You can see that I've got some of them raised. There's level, but it's only raising half of them. And in between here, let's see if we can, I'm sorry, I'm not used to doing this. See, right here, I'm going in between the top threads and the bottom threads. So my my weft is kind of caught in there. Oh no, now my camera's going to act up. I should have left it alone. It was doing fine. Okay, I'm going to do a little bit more, and then we'll go ahead and try our pattern. I'm just a little too close to this desk over here to be comfortable. So I'll have to figure out a different way to put my camera if I'm going to do any real weaving out here. And I do not have floating selvages on this one. That is a way that also helps you keep your selvages clean, but I had that on here, and I put them on kind of as an afterthought, and they kept, sorry about that, and they kept, I kept having to go to the back of the loom and, and move the threads, and I got tired of messing with that. So when I took my, oh, good grief. We almost had a real disaster there. My iced tea got knocked over by this big old shuttle. I stopped it before it made a mess, though. Now I forgot what I was saying. Oh, um, anyway, I took those floating selvages off when I took off the fabric, the other fabric that had been woven on this warp, and decided to start kind of fresh. When you have room to work, it's a little faster and easier than it is with this having to maneuver around all the time here, because you can just move your whoops, there, I caught one. You can't always even see that when you do it, so you don't find it till later when you look back and you see a flaw in your fabric. Okay, I'm finally going to figure this out, I think. I'm not used to having my space so constricted. And it's been a while since I did much weaving, so. But you can see the difference. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and start with the pattern. This is still just as close to plain weave as you can get with this particular warping. So actually I'm going to go back to the other side before I start my pattern. I always start my patterns on the left, not because you have to, maybe because I'm left-handed, but mostly because that way I always know where I am. If I'm on the left side, I know where I am in the pattern versus if I'm on the right side. So if you start sometimes on the left and sometimes on the right, that makes it a little bit more difficult. Okay, this pattern that I'm doing, I've got 4 treadles, and I'm doing 1, 2, and see how it didn't catch that? That's where the floating selvage is good, and I wasn't thinking about that when I took it off. I wasn't thinking about it when I took it off. Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and do it and see what happens. 1, 2, and then from this side we'll do 2, 3, and I'm having the same problem over here. It's not catching everything. And then 3, 4, that one catches out there though, so it could still be okay. And then 4, 1. And for the pattern to really show up, you have to do this several times for it to show up. So we'll start again. 1, 2. Two, 3. Three, 4. And 4, 1. and 2. Two, 3. 3, 4. 4, 1. Oh, goodness, I wasn't noticing. I hope it hadn't been doing this the whole time. Oh, it's missing this thread. I missed this thread. That's not good. Okay, let's just go ahead and do this and figure out how I did that. Okay, when it's down here, it doesn't seem to mess up as bad as when I've got it raised, so I won't keep it raised. Okay, let me zoom in a little bit. Well, now I can't find it. Okay. Oh, my camera does not like it. It doesn't like it. Okay, but you can see how we've got a straight twill right here. And that's what 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 1 is. It's a straight twill pattern. And all of the whites are going the same direction. And then in the greens, you can see it's got a, it's making V's. Now in the reds, you can't see what that is. But you can see what the red looks like here. And I'm just going to leave it like this, and we're going to try, I'm going to go ahead and, since I finished the pattern, I'm going to trim this off and do the same thing in brown so you can see the difference. Okay, 1, 2, and I'm going to tuck this back over here, and then I'm going to take the brown and go all the way through. Sorry, try to get that down as quick as I can. I'm trying to okay. Okay, so there is 1, 2, and then we do 2, 3 from this direction. Okay, that one's still not catching. I'm going to go back and I'm just going to grab it because I may have to just do that every once in a while with this pattern. I may end up putting the floating selvage back on it. See, sometimes you learn things. Okay, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4. And then, whoops. Oh, see, that's pulling in. I need to move my temple. Okay. And then 4, 1. It's easy to forget where you are when you're doing all that other stuff. 1, 2. I think I'm going to go under that instead of over it. 2, 3. 3, 4. 4, 1. 1, 2. 2, 3. 3, 4. I think so. 3, 4. And 4, 1. Okay. Now, if you look at this one, you can see that let me see if I can show you. That V pattern goes across the red too. So the red and the green are warped exactly the same. But when you're using, like if I was using green right now, you would only see this V pattern in the red and you wouldn't see it in the green. So that's a way to, you can vary your cloth just with the color of your weft, even if you use the same treadling all the time, if you've got it warped a certain way. You can also vary it by using different treadlings, and there are some other treadlings I wrote down that I want to try, but anyway, sorry, this is a terrible video, probably the worst one I've ever made. I think I've said that once before, but I think this truly is. But I wanted to show you, I'm having fun weaving on my loom again, and I got to work on this. I may have to try doing that treadling coming from the opposite direction and see if it makes a difference. Anyway, I think it's going to make some fun towels. I'm just going to keep kind of going back and forth, and no real pattern as far as for this particular bit. This is just like practice. And then I'll decide what I'm going to do. I may add a floating selvage on this side over here. On this side, I may add a floating selvage because it's still not picking up very often. And I think when I did pick those up, I did them on purpose. So, oh well. I hope you enjoyed this little bit. God bless you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.